Greetings. I'm your host, Tahuti Ra. Again, please subscribe to my channel. I want to get at least today 10 subscribers. And by the end of July, I want to have at least 100 subscribers. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I have some good information to share with you today. Some a little different than what you might be accustomed to hearing, but it is truthful. And let me just share that with you today. I want to talk about 10 reasons why the overturning of the affirmative action might benefit Black Americans. 10 reasons why the U.S. Supreme Court's overturn of the affirmative action law could turn out to be a blessing for Black Americans. Now, one of the reasons that some of the advocates of affirmative action argue is that it may sometimes lead to the selection of individuals. Some of the critics argue that that promoting merit-based selection or affirmative action leads to the selection of individuals based on race rather than qualifications. And that is most likely true in some cases, because there's some people that are in positions that should not be there. And that's not just Black Americans, but white Americans as well, and especially females. Joe Biden said that he was looking for an African-American woman to sit on the Supreme Court. Not even anyone that was even qualified, but just she would have to be Black. And he didn't do that because he's some great promoter of Black values. I mean, Biden has his entire 40 plus years in Congress, he sided with the Dixie Democrats the whole time. So Biden is not no lover of Black Americans. So eliminated affirmative action could encourage a more merit-based selection, allowing Black Americans who have excelled academically to be recognized and rewarded accordingly. So when you see where I'm at, you know affirmative action had nothing to do with that. So that's one positive aspect of it. It also could lead to fostering a sense of achievement. Removing affirmative action can help counter the perception that Black Americans may have received preferential treatment, like most white women. Let me add that, because that's the case with most white women, that they're in positions because in most cases they too have received preferential treatment due to being white and female. Now, the removal of this law, I hope it goes farther than just focusing on Black Americans, but white women as well should feel the sting. Now, this law, or the removal of this law, it allows individuals to feel a sense of personal accomplishment and recognition for their hard work and abilities, not just because you're a Black or just because you're a white female. It encourages competence, where the critics argue that the affirmative action may inadvertently create a sense of complacency among Black Americans, and I like to say white women. Without relying on affirmative action policies, individuals may be motivated to strive for excellence and compete on a level playing field. So everything that they're saying about African Americans is equally true, and in some cases even more so true for white women, because they have benefited just as much as African Americans have. In some cases, they definitely have benefited more than African American males from affirmative action. White women have benefited a lot more from affirmative action than Black males, especially Black heterosexual males. So another thing that this overturning could do, according to some, is encourage competition. The critics argue that affirmative action may inadvertently create a sense of complacency among some African American students. Without relying on affirmative action policies, individuals may be motivated to strive for excellence and compete on a level playing field. Another thing, expanding opportunities. By eliminating affirmative action in education and employment, resources may be reallocated to address socioeconomic disparities, focusing on providing equal opportunities for all individuals, including African Americans, in various domains such as education, job training, and economic empowerment. A diverse perspective might come up out of this. Critics of the affirmative action claim that its elimination may lead to a more diverse array of perspectives within academia and professional environments. They argue that this could enhance the quality of discussions and decision-making processes, benefiting African Americans and society as a whole. I don't see how that's the case, but this is just some of the critics, what they say could come about since the removal of affirmative action. Reducing stigmatization. Some argue that affirmative action can create a perception that African American individuals are less qualified or competent. And removing affirmative action could help combat these negative stereotypes and promote a more inclusive society based on individual talents and achievements. And I hope that the court also involves itself with the LGBTQ movement and takes away any preference that they have. For instance, we should be able to talk about how we feel about what is a woman and what is a man. So if you're going to be removing affirmative action, let's go all the way with this thing and give Americans their speech back. Give Americans the free speech, which is part of the Constitution. Let us get that back too. If you want to, remove the affirmative action, let's go all the way with this. Encouraging personal growth. The elimination of affirmative action may prompt Black Americans to seek alternative paths or opportunities that allow for personal growth and development outside traditional education or professional setting. This can lead to the exploration of unconventional avenues and foster entrepreneurship and creativity. I agree with that. We all should have, especially now with the AI making so much available to us, all of us should be entrepreneurs. And so that's something that I do agree with, the idea of encouraging personal growth. Emphasizing socioeconomic factors. Critics contend that socioeconomic factors often play a significant role in creating disparities, and focusing on economic disadvantage rather than race could lead to more effective and targeted policies that address the root causes of inequality. The root causes of inequality in the United States is apparent. It's called white supremacy. Not racism, white supremacy. And I provided you with a definition of white supremacy in one of my other videos. So you might want to go look at that, because white supremacy is the umbrella, and racism is simply one of the mediums that is used under white supremacy. White supremacy is an ideology, it's a philosophy. Racism is one of the mediums that is used from this philosophy by white supremacists. The other thing that could come from this is the idea of emphasizing socioeconomic factors. Critics contend that socioeconomic factors often play a significant role in creating disparities and focusing on economic disadvantage, again, rather than race. I read that. Promoting equal treatment. Supporters argue that overturning affirmative action aligns with the principle of equal treatment under the law. They believe that treating individuals equally, regardless of their race or ethnicity, is a fundamental aspect of justice and fairness. Also encouraging self-reliance. Critics argue that affirmative action can inadvertently perpetuate a sense of independence or dependence, suggesting that African Americans need preferential treatment to succeed. So the elimination of affirmative action may inspire self-reliance and the pursuit of success through individual effort and determination. So in essence, let me just recap these 10 ideas associated with what could be a blessing. Promoting merit-based selection, the idea that if you are in a position, you were there because you were completely qualified to be there. You were the better person. The second thing is fostering a sense of achievement. So you know you're not there because someone gave you a white handout or based on white beneficence. You're not there because some white liberal felt sorry for you. No, you're there because you're the damn best that could be in that position. So fostering a sense of achievement so you can keep your head high. Encouraging competition. So you don't mind competing with your co-workers because you know that you're damn good. And so you want the competition because you know they can't beat you at your game. When I taught at the university, I know that I had no rivals on the topics that I taught. I was the best. So there was no need for me to fear that anyone was better than me. I stood at the top of the heap. Number 4, expanding opportunities in other areas. The idea that by eliminating affirmative action in education or employment, resources may be reallocated to address socioeconomic disparities, focusing on providing equal opportunities for all individuals. In other words, we'll be able to bring in more Latinos to use that money. The 60,000 brought into New York City, or the 10,000+ brought into Chicago so far. That money that was used for affirmative action can be reallocated for this new workforce that they're focusing on. Number 5, a diverse perspective might come from this decision. In other words, critics of affirmative action claim that its elimination may lead to a more diverse array of perspectives. I don't see how that's possible within academia and professional environments. The critics argue that this could enhance the quality of discussions and decision-making processes, benefiting African Americans. I don't see how removing African Americans from the, employment and from academia is going to create a more diverse perspective. That argument doesn't hold water. Number 6, reducing stigmatization. Critics argue that affirmative action can create a perception that African Americans are less qualified or competent. And by removing affirmative action, it could help combat these negative stereotypes. Well, white folk, especially those who live under the guise of the white supremacists, they're going to carry these negative stereotypes regardless, whether I got my position based on merit or if I was appointed to that position because I was a woman or because I was a homosexual, because there's a preference for black homosexual males as well. So the black homosexual male is preferred over the heterosexual male. This is just a fact. the white establishment feels less threatened with the black homosexual male than they do with the they feel less threatened with the homosexual male, black male, than they do with a heterosexual black male. So the idea that this is going to reduce stigmatization, I don't see that happen. Encouraging personal growth. Yeah, I can see it encouraging personal growth because now that you're not looking for the white handout, you know that you got to do all this on your own. And so this is something that is good. This is probably the most positive thing that is going to come up out of this. Encouraging personal growth. Now you got to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, so to speak, or you have to involve yourself more in the black community now that the white handouts are becoming less. Number 8, emphasizing socioeconomic factors. Critics contend that socioeconomic factors often play a significant role in creating disparities, and focusing on economic disadvantages rather than race could lead to more effective and targeted policies that address the root causes of inequality. This is good. Focusing on economic disadvantages. And so that would be 90% of Americans who have been economically disadvantaged. And non-whites in particular are more so than anyone else. So how are you going to address that without some type of affirmative action, something similar to affirmative action? So how are you going to rectify the socio-economic difference or the inequalities? So I'm not sure what all the praise is from this idea that the affirmative action laws were shot down. I'm personally, I'm glad personally, because I think black people need to come together more, and they need to get, to come up out of this deep slumber. And this is just the beginning. This idea of taking away the affirmative action, and I'm so happy for it because it's going to make black people come together in a way that they have not. They were disillusioned, after integration, after civil rights laws in the 60s, the Voting Rights Act, housing law of 1968, they became disillusioned. And now they're getting a reality check. So thank you, Supreme Court. Number 9, promoting equal treatment. The supporters argue that overturning affirmative action aligns with the principle of equal treatment under the law. They believe that treating individuals equally, regardless of their race, or I would say regardless of their race or sexuality. So we should not be treating the LGBT community with white gloves. And the critics believe that that treating individuals equally, regardless of their race or sexuality, is a fundamental aspect of justice and fairness. Number 10, encouraging self-reliance. Critics argue that affirmative action can inadvertently perpetuate a sense of dependency, suggesting that African Americans need preferential treatment to succeed. The elimination of affirmative action may inspire self-reliance and the pursuit of success through individual effort and determination. That's the key word, self-reliance. This is what the African American community needs more than anything else. They need to recreate that sense of self-reliance, something that they had during segregation. They knew that the white man wasn't giving them any handouts. They knew that there was no preference, maybe a little preference for some of the women that some of the white men were lusting on. And so that's going to be one of the things that is going to be more of a blessing than a curse. The fact that the Black community is being forced to become more self-reliant. It is essential in closing, to acknowledge that these arguments represent only one perspective on the issue, and there are contrasting viewpoints that support the continuation of affirmative action as a necessary tool to address racial disparities. Again, I'm your host, Tahuti Ra. Subscribe to my channel, and we'll talk about these things some more. Not sure if we're going to be able to agree on all of this, but I'm giving as many different perspectives on this as I possibly can. Look forward to speaking with you soon. Peace be upon you.